You ready? All right, thank you, Haley. Appreciate it. All right, folks. After I get my paperwork in order here. All right, let's come to order. Welcome to the Board of County Commissioners Land Use Meeting and Public Hearing, Tuesday, February 10th, 2026. We're starting just a little bit late after our prior business meeting went a little long, but if everyone will please stand and join me in a Pledge of the Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I probably should have said the Pledge of Allegiance, but you guys get the tongue-tied version of me today, so we'll try to muddle through best we can. Turning to the county attorney for certification of the agenda.
Yes, sir. The county attorney's office has reviewed the two items on the agenda. You have appropriate jurisdiction over these matters, and where it's necessary, appropriate posting has been made.
Thank you, Counselor. Commissioners, any disclosures for items on this agenda, please?
No, sir.
I have none either. Let's go right into our land use meeting agenda item. First item and only item on our land use meeting agenda, thank you, Counselor, is Hempville Subdivision Second Amendment. Replat project file is SB 2025-013. Eric Pavlinek presenting for Community Development.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Eric Pavlinek, representing Planning Services. The item before you is the Hempville Subdivision Second Amendment. The product number is SB 2025-013. Kevin Archer with David E. Archer & Associates is here as the applicant representative, and Bob Heyer is here as the property owner. The request is for approval of a replat to subdivide a single-family residential lot in two lots. The intent of the replat is to provide a review process for the replatting of an existing subdivision plat or superblock final plat. The replat process begins with the submittal of an application. Following comments by staff, the request is forwarded to referral agencies for the official review period. At the beginning of the referral period, courtesy notices of an application and process are sent to abutting property owners. No comments were received from any abutting property owners or other members of the public. Staff further analyze the requests, and the applicant addresses any issues, and then the item is scheduled before the Board of County Commissioners at a public meeting. The site indicated by the red star is generally located on the south side of Wolfensberger Road, west of the town of Castle Rock, and east of State Highway 105. The replat area outlined in red is zoned large rural residential. This is an aerial view of the property. The site is currently developed with a single-family residence and detached garage constructed in 1994. As background, the final plat for the Hempville subdivision was approved by the board in 1983, which created two residential lots. One of those lots is located north of the site and is not a part of the request. This is a replat exhibit showing the configuration of the proposed lots. Access to the two lots will be from a private road that connects to Wolfensberger Road. A 40-foot wide utility and access easement is granted as depicted on the replat exhibit. Water and sewer will be provided by individual lot well to lower Dawson Aquifer and septic systems.
Yeah, that's it. What happened here? Let's see.
This is an aerial pictometry view of the site. Wolfensberger Road is north of the property.
Meh.
Before you are the approval standards applicable to a replat request as described within detail in the staff report. Staff has evaluated the application in accordance with Article 7 of the subdivision resolution. Should the board find that the approval standards for the replat are met, the following proposed conditions should be considered for inclusion in the motion. Condition number 1, Prior to plat recordation, the applicant shall pay $500 for cash in lieu of school land dedication for the additional residential lot to Douglas County School District. Condition number 2, prior to plat recordation, the applicant shall pay $250 for cash in lieu of parkland dedication for the additional residential lot to Douglas County. Condition number 3, prior to plat recordation, the applicant shall re-permit the existing well as a non-exempt well pursuant to the water decree as requested by the Colorado Division of Water Resources. Condition number 4, prior to or concurrent with the plat recordation, the declaration of restrictive covenants reserving all Denver Basin aquifer water for future use on the property shall be recorded. And condition number 5, prior to any ground disturbance on Lot 2A2, a Class 2 survey will need to be performed to evaluate any cultural resources. Condition number 6, during construction activity within the development, the applicant, its successor and assigned, shall take all reasonable care to watch for historic resources, paleontological resources, and shall immediately notify Douglas County and complete appropriate Colorado Office of Archaeological and Historic Preservation data management forms in the event of such discovery. Condition number 7, prior to plat recordation, technical corrections to the replat exhibit shall be made to the satisfaction of Douglas County. And condition number 8, all commitments and promises made by the applicant or the applicant's representative during the public meeting and or agreed to in writing are included in the public record have been relied upon by the Board of County Commissioners in approving the application. Therefore, such approval is conditioned upon the applicant's full satisfaction of all such commitments and promises. Section 706.06 of the subdivision resolution sets forth the parameters for the board's determination of a replat request, which is noted on the slide. This concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions at this time. Otherwise, Kevin Archer is here to answer any questions. They do not have a formal presentation.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate it. Any questions for Eric at this time?
I do have a question. If it's best to defer to Mr. Archer, that would be acceptable as well. But it regards the private road that comes off Wolfensberger to this property and I think several other properties too. What's happening with that private road?
Eric Pavlik for staff. It's my understanding that the applicant will pave portions of that road. It's a private road up to their property. And they do have a shared kind of maintenance agreement with, I believe 3 of the lot owners for future maintenance of that roadway. But I believe they will maintain a 40-foot wide width of that private road.
40.
And yeah, maybe Kevin Archer could follow up to that.
Okay, if necessary, 40, yeah, okay. That seems rather wide for kind of a rural road, but if that's the plan and they are willing to do it, then I look forward to hearing about that.
I don't have any questions, Eric, so let's go ahead and have Mr. Archer come up. Let's hear from the applicant. Mr. Archer, please do give us your name, where you're from, specifically your credentials, please.
Good afternoon. ARCHER 105 Wilcox. By credentials, registered engineer, PE. Is that sufficient?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
We want to thank staff for helping us through the project, and a little clarification on the road. It's not 40 feet wide; it'll be 24 plus shoulders, and we've got plans approved by engineering to that effect. Also, at this point, we're going to widen it with gravel, not asphalt, although part of it is asphalt. So the widening will be gravel and whatnot. So.
Okay. Well, that satisfies my question. 40 feet did seem wide for a kind of rural offshoot from Wolfensberger, but so thank you very much. Thanks for those improvements.
I don't think I have any other, I don't have any comments, Mr. Archer, but please, if there's anything else you feel the board should know.
Yeah, the other, there was a list of conditions of approval, and we agree to those conditions.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. We do not have anyone signed up for public comment. Is there anyone who does wish to give public comment on this replat? Seeing none, moving back to the board for action.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm just looking for one additional thing before I make a motion, so. And really, it was could you show the conditions? I do appreciate approval standards, but the conditions present that you agreed to? 500, okay. Okay, the next page. And there's no third page, correct?
There is, yeah.
Oh,
8 conditions.
There it is. Okay, that's what I was looking for. Okay. All right. Well, Mr. Chair, any further comments before I propose a motion?
Please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to approve Hemp Hill subdivision Second Amendment replat because it does meet all the approved criteria with these 8 conditions as presented. This is project file SB 2025-013.
Sorry, just getting my paperwork going here.
I can make further.
I like these. I do like these replats. I mean, I've always been a big believer that the residents of the county have a right to capitalize on their property. And so we see something here that will allow the current owner to capitalize on their property in a very reasonable way. And so I'm all in favor, and I second. There is a motion, a second. Further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Replat is approved. All right, our next item, moving to the public hearing, our next item is Sterling Ranch Plan Development, 15th Amendment, Plan Development Rezoning and Major Amendment. Project file is ZR 2025-014. Brett Thomas, Chief Planner, Community Development, presenting.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Brett Thomas, representing Community Development. Request is the 15th Amendment to the Sterling Ranch Plan Development. Project number ZR 2025-014. The applicant representatives are present on behalf of Sterling Ranch. The request is for approval of a change in zoning of approximately 595 acres from Agricultural 1, Rural Residential, and General Industrial to Sterling Ranch Plan Development. The request also seeks approval to increase the total number of dwelling units within the Sterling Ranch PD from 12,050 units to 16,050 units. The intent of the Plan Development District is to encourage innovative and creative design and to facilitate a mix of use and development of a balanced community, including residential, business, commercial, recreational, open and other selected secondary uses in accordance with Section 2467-101 of Colorado Revised Statutes. PD rezoning and major amendment process begins with submittal of an application. Following a review period by referral agencies and public, notice is given for public hearings before the Planning Commission and Board of County Commissioners. Comments from residents were received through the review process and were included in the staff report and provided prior to this afternoon's hearing. The Planning Commission heard the application at its January 12th public hearing. Some speakers stated that their appreciation of the proposal to designate the acreage adjacent to Levere's as open space and a pending good neighbor agreement. Other speakers opined that the land use process had been rushed, that traffic analysis, environmental remediation reports, and water supply documentation were inadequate, that an evacuation study and plan were needed, and that the application would have a negative effect on adjacent equestrian lots. The Planning Commission recommended approval of the request by a vote of 5 to 1. As background, the Sterling Ranch PD was approved by the board in July of 2013. This is the 15th Amendment to the original PD document. The Sterling Ranch PD, indicated by the red star, is generally located in the northwest portion of the county. The Sterling Ranch PD is located in the Chatfield urban area as designated in the 2040 Douglas County Comprehensive Master Plan. The Sterling Ranch PD, outlined in red, is generally west of the intersection of US Highway 85 and Titan Parkway, more specifically west of Moore Road, south of Chatfield State Park, east of Rampart Range Road, and north of agriculturally zoned land in the Chatfield Valley. The 63-acre Burgess property, highlighted with the hatching on the west, is located east of Rampart Range Road, approximately 3,000 feet north of its intersection with Waterton Road. The 532-acre Comores property, which is shown in hatching on the east side, is located southeast of the intersection of Moore Road and Waterton Road, adjacent to the communities of Sterling Ranch, Plum Valley Heights, and Leviers. This is an aerial of the Sterling Ranch PD, which is outlined in red. Filings 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6 are visible in the east portion of the map, south of Titan Road, primarily north of Waterton Road. Filing 3 is visible in the southwest portion of the PD in the vicinity of Waterton Road and Rampart Range Road. The Burgess and Comores properties to be rezoned are depicted with hatching. This slide depicts the proposed rezoning of the Burgess property from A1 to Sterling Ranch PD. The proposed land use plan designates the Burgess property as planning area D2 with a mix of C1 multifunction open space along the East Willow Creek corridor and along the northern property line. This slide depicts the proposed rezoning of the Comores property from A1, RR, and GI to Sterling Ranch PD. The proposed land use plan designates the portion of the Comores property east and west of Waterton Road as planning area D2 with potential inclusion within special character zone E. The land east of Waterton Road is the site of Zebulon. Approximately 194 acres of the Comores property between the Zebulon site and Leviers will be designated as open space conservation in the PD as defined in the Douglas County zoning resolution. It will have the uses and development standards of the OSC zone district and will serve as a wildlife corridor and buffer for Leviers. The approval criteria for a PD rezoning request are set forth in section 1503 and listed on this slide. The approval criteria are discussed on pages 10 through 15 of the staff report. In addition, the water appeal approval standards apply to this application. A detailed assessment of the project's compliance with all standards is discussed on pages 14 and 15 of the staff report. In accordance with section 1802A of the zoning resolution, Board of County Commissioners determines the adequacy of water supply to meet the demand for a proposed development at the preliminary plan stage of development review, not with a PD amendment or rezoning. The submittal requirements related to water supply documentation for a PD rezoning and major amendment have been met. The approval criteria for a major PD amendment request are set forth in section 1520 and listed on this slide. The approval criteria are discussed on pages 15 and 16 of the staff report. Staff has evaluated the PD rezoning and major amendment request in accordance with section 15 of the zoning resolution. Should the board find that the approval criteria for the PD rezoning and major amendment are met, the following proposed conditions should be considered for inclusion in its motion. Condition number 1, prior to recordation, all minor technical corrections will be made to the plan development document to the satisfaction of Douglas County. Condition number 2, all commitments and promises made by the applicant or the applicant's representatives during the public hearing and or agreed to in writing and included in the public record have been relied upon by the Board of County Commissioners in approving the application. Therefore, such approval is conditioned upon the applicant's full satisfaction of all such commitments and promises. Sections 1505.09 and 1522.08 set forth the parameters for the board's determination on the PD rezoning and major amendment requests. This concludes staff's presentation. I'm available to take questions on the staff report this time. Brad Jackson with Public Works Engineering is here, and Jared Daines, the county's water consultant, is also available for questions.
All right, thank you, Brett. Any questions from the board?
Mr. Chair, the one question I do have comes from the Planning Commission notes, which called the plan rush. I know Sterling Ranch, the land itself and the zoning has been gone over with a very fine-tooth comb for well over a decade now. And we did, as a Board of County Commissioners, delay this hearing by 2 weeks, giving the public even more time. But to the comment that is rushed, has this been rushed in any way that could be dangerous or any way that something's been missed? I want to make sure our processes here as a county are being followed properly. So has this been rushed or pushed forward through our offices?
It has followed the process in Section 15,
Okay.
the PD rezoning major amendment.
So no special treatment or no, oh, we can just skip that part. Nothing like that?
Correct.
Okay.
I've got no questions for you right now, Brett. I would like to hear from the applicant. At this time, we're happy to hear applicant's presentation. And Ms. Beckman, you are by no means a stranger to the board, but if you could please give us your name and who are you, and where you're from, i.e. who you represent today as the applicant.
Hi, I'm Susan Beckman, Beckman. I'm the Zoning and Rezoning Director for Sterling Ranch Development Company, 8155 Piney River Avenue, Suite 200, Sterling Ranch, Colorado, 80125. Thank you, Chairman Teal and Commissioner Van Winkle, for your time today, and for your commitment to Douglas County, and for your consideration of the 15th Amendment to the Sterling Ranch PD. This afternoon, I'll be presenting the 15th Amendment to the Sterling Ranch Plan Development. This amendment commits, or it discusses two separate sets of approval criteria, as Brett Thomas outlined. So first today, we're going to look at the approval criteria for the rezoning of the Waterton Business Park. That can be considered actually a downzoning, as much of the land is currently general industrial, or even the land that is not zoned general industrial, it is being used in an industrial way. Second, we'll cover the inclusion of the rezone of Waterton Business Park into the Sterling Ranch current PD. The 15th Amendment to the Sterling Ranch Plan Development is a major project that has been in the works for years. It's a true big lift. It will transform blighted land into something better, much better. It will preserve vital open space, wildlife corridors, and buffers for neighboring communities like Lavier's. And this project will create valuable walking neighborhoods and easy access to recreational amenities. It's taken a tremendous amount of work to get here. On behalf of Sterling Ranch, I'd like to thank all the Douglas County departments and staff who made this a reality, especially the Douglas County planning staff, Public Works, and engineering team for their professionalism and dedication. So I'd like to introduce the Sterling Ranch team for presenting the 15th Amendment. We have Brock Smethels, who is the president of Sterling Ranch, Kevin Jonk, Director of Entitlements and Engineering for Sterling Ranch Development Company, Abby Kirkbride, Brownstein Hyatt, Farber and Schreck, Cassie Slade, Fox Tuttle, Curtis Davidson, our Senior Landscape Architect, PCS Group, Jordan Kemp, Environmental Scientist from Kimley Horn Associates, and then our partners in Sterling Ranch, Gary Debus, the General Manager of the Community Authority Board, Jessica Gottschalk, Director of Residential Support, Sterling Ranch Community Authority Board, and Andrea Cole, General Manager from Dominion Water and Sanitation District. I want to kind of walk through what we're going to do today. And to start, I'd like to start, of course you all know where Sterling Ranch is. You can see Santa Fe, Chatfield Reservoir, Titan Road, Moore Road, the Southern Connector. We'll get in a little bit more about the Waterton Business Park in the next slide. But this is the current footprint of the Sterling Ranch development. And this is where we are today. This will be before the 15th Amendment is approved. We are the #1 best-selling master plan community in Colorado, and we are ranked 42 top-rated master plan in the United States, in the entire United States. That's a John Burns rating. We are approved PD with a maximum dwelling unit count of 12,050. We have 3,400 acres with an estimate 1,300 acres of open space, parks, wildlife corridors. We are a thriving community with 100% of Sterling Ranch residents currently being served with renewable water, and we have multi-gig fiber internet. Today, we have 3,000 families living in homes. Almost 10,000 residents call Sterling Ranch their home today. We're a growing community with libraries and schools on the way and a lot of commercial coming. Today, we're at about 25% build out. So today, we're going to be talking about the future of Sterling Ranch. This is kind of what it's going to look like after. I want to point out just some areas that we'll be talking about today. We have the Waterton Business Park, formerly known as Comores. The Burgess property, we'll be talking about the rezone of that. The ARS property, we'll be talking about another planning area designation for that. And then I would like to point out the location and extent area here. Just recently, the county staff presented to your planning commission a location and extent for grading for a regional sports center, sheriff training facility, and county wildfire aviation building in that area. And I just wanted to point that out. That was a few weeks ago, and it was supported unanimously by your planning commission. After the 15th Amendment is approved, we hope that Sterling Ranch will remain the #1 best selling master plan community in the metro area. We will have an approved PD with a maximum dwelling unit count of 16,050, 4,000 acres of land, and an estimated 1,500 acres of open space and wildlife corridors. We'll be a growing community with schools, library, and commercial spaces. And today we will be, if this is approved, at 18% of build out. It'll be an awesome place to live, work, play, raise a family, and retire in safe, well-designed neighborhoods. And yeah, it'll be home to Zebulon, Douglas County Sheriff Training Center, and Aviation Building, and also will be included into the Sterling Ranch neighborhood community. Over the last 2 years, Sterling Ranch team has worked on various stages of the Waterton Business Park. Commissioner Van Winkle, you asked a question earlier about the timing being rushed. To get to this point, our efforts had to include 2 major comprehensive master plan map amendments. These amendments were enthusiastically, except we had 1 vote in the last Planning Commission hearing, but they were supported by 2 separate Planning Commission in 2 separate hearings, almost a year apart. And that supported the land use case that we're presenting today, the 15th Amendment. We had to bring land in from the Levere's rural community area into the Chatfield Basin, different parcels of land at different times, and both of those were supported by your planning commissioners. We also did a lot of outreach during these 2 years. We have met with our neighbors, service providers, and partners, and also the Metro District elected representatives of the Sterling Ranch community. So I just want you to take a look of all of the outreach that we've done for the last 2 years. And I'd like to kind of give you a timeline of the project because of the comments that have said that how quickly we have rushed the 15th Amendment and how quickly it's been processed. This is a list of the required studies to get us to the 15th Amendment. Some of those started with the Comprehensive Master Map Amendment Plan. As you can see, many of these studies go back to 2024. In fact, Kevin Jonk, our engineer at Sterling Ranch, just reminded me for the first traffic study for the Master Transportation Plan, which we needed to update, which was a requirement of the 15th Amendment, the first traffic count was done before spring break in 2024. So we've been working on this a long time, almost over 2 years, us and a lot of our partners. And so this is an aerial picture of the property that we'll be discussing today. It's beautiful land, and we all know it has some scars, but we're going to heal this land, preserve a wildlife corridor, and develop it in a way that is compatible for the Chatfield Basin, and bring much-needed housing for families, and bring fun-needed amenities to Douglas County. So that is the Comores property of the Waterton Business Park. I want to make sure that you see that's Plum Creek right there. And we're going to preserve over 185 acres of wildlife corridor on that parcel. So for the rezoning portion of the 15th Amendment, I'd like to introduce Kevin Jonk, our Director of Entitlements at Sterling Ranch. Kevin has extensive experience with sites that have environmental records, including playing a key role in a redevelopment of River Point at Sheridan, a popular shopping destination that was built on a former landfill. He has a master's degree in transportation and has worked over the last 18 months very closely with county staff on the updated Sterling Ranch Master Regional Transportation Plan. Most importantly, Kevin has worked closely with the Colorado Department of Public Health on this project. He knows the Waterton Business Park land like the back of his hands. After Kevin walks through the rezoning details, that's the first set of approval criteria, I'll come back up to discuss the inclusion into the Sterling Ranch PD, which is the second set of approval criteria that we must meet. So 2 approval criterias, and then we'll open it up for questions. Kevin, you want to come up?
Thank you, ma'am. Kevin, you've been introduced, but please do once again state your name and your position with the applicant.
Yes, pardon me. Yes, thank you, Commissioners. Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Jonk, J-O-H-N-K. I am the Engineering and Entitlements Director at Sterling Ranch. I'll be going over the first portion of this application, which is the rezoning of the subject property from general industrial to planned development. For this, we are subject to Section 1503 of the zoning resolution, of which there are 10 criteria. So let's walk through them. The first criteria is about compliance with the zoning resolution and comprehensive master plan. Now, this refers us to Section 1501 of the resolution, and it outlines the goals that should guide a rezoning. There are 8 sort of sub-goals here, and many of these overlap sort of directly with the approval criteria, so I'll only highlight a few of the distinct goals worth noting. The first of those goals is that there should be provision of ample open space. As you know, this land includes the crucial Levere's Gulch elk migration corridor that links the Pike National Forest with the Highlands Ranch backcountry. That corridor is occupied right now by the remains of the old Chemours DuPont dynamite factory, an area that is, as of right now, zoned heavy industrial. We are committing to protecting 185 acres of that corridor, preserving as open space, and providing a buffer for the town of Levere's to respect their community and their history. The next goal is to ensure that environmentally and visually sensitive areas are preserved. That open space migration corridor I showed you in the previous slide, we partnered with environmental scientists at Kimley Horn to perform not 1, but 2 wildlife assessments over the past year on this area. And we found that while this area is identified by Douglas County Parks and Colorado Parks and Wildlife as an important elk migration corridor, it is not functioning at all. The primary reason is that there are multiple layers of impassable barbed wire fencing, again, a remnant from the old heavy industrial factory. You'll see an example of one of those fences on the current slide. 6 foot tall with quadruple strand barbed wire at the top. You will also see behind it tall piles of petroleum-based millings, not conducive to the goal of environmental preservation. And then you'll see in the map that there are 2 layers of this fencing, one west of Waterton and one east of Waterton. Since these fences are impassable, they are actually forcing elk north and south into the adjacent existing residential communities, and that should not be happening. In fact, one of CPW's main goals is to reduce human-wildlife conflict, and we will help reduce that conflict by removing fencing, rehabilitating the area, and restoring it to a viable wildlife corridor, which leads us right into the next goal from Section 1501, which is promoting development that is sensitive to the natural area and environment. Sterling Ranch has 2 wildlife corridors in our master plan. You'll see those in green on the map. The Willow Creek Wildlife Corridor on the left, and the Sterling Gulch Wildlife Corridor on the right. The proposed new Levere's Gulch Elk Migration Corridor is at the far right of the page. Now, with over 3,000 homes occupied and over a decade of development so far, Sterling Ranch now has a track record. Over that time, we've kept 2 pristine wildlife corridors where the built environment and nature coexist. You'll see an example on this slide of the Sterling Gulch Wildlife Corridor. We'll take the 3rd new corridor, we'll restore it, rejuvenate it, and achieve the same success. So that concludes our 1501 goals. So we'll return to the approval criteria with 150302, which is complying with all statutory provisions. We've worked closely with county staff and our stakeholders to ensure that we are in compliance with all applicable provisions, including those in the zoning resolution, the comprehensive master plan, and our PD. Approval criteria 150303, whether there has been a change in the character of the neighborhood since the land was last zoned. The subject property occupies land that has 3 different zoning designations: general industrial, rural residential, and agricultural. What you'll find when you visit the land is that none of the active uses match the zoning. We'll start with the area zoned for residential on our property, specifically in this area. It is occupied by the wildlife corridor, and it's part of the Levere's buffer area that I just referenced. We would certainly not want to build housing there. The area zoned for general industrial in purple is also occupied by the wildlife corridor and the old dynamite plant, which has been defunct for decades. And lastly, the area zoned for agricultural is currently used for piling up recycled concrete rubble, asphalt millings, sand gravel piles, not any actual agricultural uses. Here are some images of the areas that I just summarized. This is the area zoned agricultural right now with the rubble piles, heavy equipment, etc. Here are the ruins of the dynamite factory in the wildlife corridor. And here are some actual photos on the ground of those ruins. Old concrete foundations, scrap piles, things that don't belong in a wildlife corridor. I will note that for the cleanup of these areas, we are regulated by CDPHE to demolish and haul off these materials in accordance with a strict materials management plan that they oversee. So we are cleaning it up, and CDPHE is going to help make sure that it's clean. This is the last slide of the photos. Hopefully you'll see the point that we're trying to make is that the land is not functioning to its current zoning status, and we'd like to make things better. So we'll move on to our next approval criteria, 150304. All public facilities and services will be available. As a part of this application, we have a will serve letter from South Metro Fire. They will provide fire district coverage. The Sheriff's Department will provide law enforcement coverage. Lumiere Fiber will provide telecom and internet services, and Douglas County School District will be the education provider. Now, that is the service providers. The next slide here depicts the actual physical utility infrastructure. The property currently does not have any central utilities, so we will extend utility mains from our existing filing 6, which is adjacent west to the property. Now, Sterling Ranch Cab and Dominion Water and Sanitation District have provided will serve letters with this application confirming that they have capacity and are willing to serve this new land. Now, this will be a pivotal improvement when it comes to wildfire mitigation, which I'd like to discuss in the next slide. Now, wildfires are top of mind for us at Sterling Ranch. Only last summer, the Levere's Airport fire ignited along the railway on the Santa Fe corridor. Our property is not far away, on the other side of Plum Creek, actually. Now, luckily, South Metro's swift response, in addition to the efforts of the county's own Helitack team, which is currently based out of this Waterton property, contained the fire quickly. But when we started this application, we immediately commissioned a wildfire risk assessment to get a better understanding of the current wildfire hazards that could threaten not just our community, but the greater region. From there, we have been meeting regularly with South Metro Fire Rescue and the Office of Emergency Management to get their feedback and ensure that we can help prioritize their goals for the area when it comes to things like fire prevention, suppression, evacuation. Both agencies wanted us, at the start, ahead of any sort of longer-term evacuation work, to go one step earlier in the process and focus on work that we can do to straight-up prevent wildfires in the first place. For South Metro Fire, that means extending fire hydrant and fire suppression into the area. Not having enough of this infrastructure, specifically in the Laviers, Chemours area, we found out is actually one of the biggest threats to their #1 rating with the Insurance Services Organization. We will help provide that fire suppression infrastructure and help reinforce that rating, which it affects the insurance rates of businesses and residents in the district's area. Now, in meeting with the Office of Emergency Management, their top priority is for the land's vegetation to be actively managed. That means trimming down grass, clearing underbrush and deadfall, mitigating noxious weeds, all in order to reduce ignition risk. Now, between providing that water hydrant infrastructure and managing the vegetation, that is exactly what we will do. Shifting to other public facilities, wastewater collection and treatment will be provided by the Chatfield Basin Water Reclamation Facility, operated by Dominion, which is under construction as we speak. Now that brings us to our most important approval criteria, 150305, that roadway capacity and level of service will be available. Now we are asking for 4,000 additional homes. The impact will not be felt right away. I mean, after all, we have constructed 3,000 homes today. It's taken us 13 years to get there. It takes a long time. But we want to make sure that we're doing the proper planning to maintain traffic flow and traffic safety. It's going to take some more upgrades from where things are today. We in the county have installed a lot of those upgrades already, but we've certainly got more to go. The work on this planning started all the way back in 2024, 2 years ago. You may know that over that time period, Douglas County has been going through an update to the 2050 Transportation Master Plan. In fact, that master plan was approved by the Planning Commission unanimously last week. Well, we decided to do the same thing and do an update to our Sterling Ranch 2050 Transportation Master Plan. That way, we can be in lockstep with the county on forecasting future traffic, identifying critical improvements, and scheduling, funding, constructing them, all in harmony with the county's capital plan. The good news is that with the full build-out model of our network, we have the capacity for the proposed increase to 16,050 homes, meaning that the network operates within capacity and at acceptable levels of service. And the cool thing about this is that it's all in the 2050 Transportation Master Plan. Within that plan, Sterling Ranch falls within 2 sub-areas. And through the build-out of the valley, there are over $288 million of improvements scheduled for these 2 sub-areas. There are multiple projects that are addressing the current hotspots in the basin that are either in design going on right now, or they're even under construction as we speak. And further out, and towards the bottom of the slide, there are even more projects planned right behind them to address longer range build-out. Now, from that list, I've summarized some of those more, like the most imminent projects here over the next 5 years. And we are especially excited about the additional widening of Santa Fe coming off onto Titan to alleviate backups there, and upgrades to the actual intersection themselves to improve capacity and improve flow. And we are also excited for the upgrades to the entire Waterton Road corridor. We will note that there's a roundabout here that is currently under construction, and more road is scheduled for widening in this year. Sterling Ranch has multiple mechanisms to ensure we're contributing to the funding and delivery of this infrastructure. We do fee contributions. Between all of them, they combine to almost $9,000 per lot for the county to construct new projects. We do infrastructure agreements to fund specific projects that the county will construct, and then sometimes it's best for Sterling Ranch to construct the roads ourselves, so we get construction scopes for those. All in all, you can estimate our combined contributions using these mechanisms to be almost $90 million. With the additional units and additional land we are asking for today, we will continue our contribution to infrastructure. Sterling Ranch pays its fair share. Moving on to our next approval criteria, 150306, that a rezoning is compatible with the surrounding land uses. We are firstly asking for a rezone of the land to PD, Planned Development. The PD will, of course, be the Sterling Ranch PD. Our PD is set up with a base level designation for the land with additional character zones that can be overlaid on top. So in these new land additions, we are proposing a base designation of D2. For a portion of the Waterton Business Park area, we would also like to overlay Special Character Zone E. And for the open space area that I described in detail just earlier, we are proposing OSC, or Open Space Conservation. Now, D2 is one of our most standard zoning designations. In fact, it's what nearly all of Sterling Ranch's 3,000 built homes are today. And that Special Character Zone E is an overlay that allows additional commercial, community, and employment uses to meet the goals of Resolution Section 1501. Now, what will this look like? Well, like I said, if you visited Sterling Ranch, you know exactly what D2 zoning looks like, because it's what we've used for all of our 3,000 built homes today. And we are very excited about the Special Character Zone E overlay to add more commercial, because it quite directly addresses the needs and wants of our current residents. One of the resounding pieces of feedback that we've received from our community in this process has been more commercial. Now, to capture the core of our application, it's that we're requesting to go from this, and we're requesting to go from this. We're wanting to make it that, and we're wanting to make it that. Nearly there with the approval criteria. 150308, compliance with section 1502. In short, we indeed comply with these requirements with our PD. 150309, providing unified development under a unified plan. Again, that one is easy. The new development will be included into the Sterling Ranch PD. And the last criteria, 150310, section 18A, we do have commitments from both Dominion Water and Sanitation District and the Sterling Ranch Community Authority Board to serve this new land with water and sanitary services. No new water will be needed to make this happen. We also received an endorsement from the State of Colorado Division of Water. They had no concerns. Now, that concludes our first part of the presentation to address the rezoning of the property. There's only a few slides left. I'm going to invite Susan Beckman back to the stand to review that last portion, which is the inclusion of the land into the Sterling Ranch PD.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Jonk. Ms. Beckman, please. I'd say commissioner or representative, or what was it? Was it secretary or something like that?
Entitlement director, no, zoning director, Sterling Ranch Development Company.
And Mr.
Thank
Jonk,
you.
just don't go far. I do have a question for you later.
Okay.
But please carry on.
Okay, thank you. Okay, take a breath. We are almost finished. We're going to go through the inclusion part of the 15th Amendment. Kevin really covered the rezoning of the Waterton Business Park. Now we're going to go into 1503 of the Douglas County Zoning Resolution. 1520, I'm sorry. Kevin covered the 1503. It establishes criteria to be considered in the review of major PD amendment applications. So this is a PD amendment to bring the Waterton Business Park into the Sterling Ranch PD. And this is a list of criteria, and we'll go through them slide by slide. Some of them overlay with what Kevin was talking about with the Waterton Business Park, and some of them are unique. 152001, the amendment is consistent with the development standards, commitments, and overall intent of the plan development, our plan development, the Sterling Ranch plan development. Sterling Ranch is in full compliance with all 36 pages of the Sterling Ranch plan development PD document. I know you've seen that document. It's Mylar size. It has like the back of a Tylenol bottle print. It's a very large document, and we are fully in compliance of all definitions, commitments, and standards in that document. Everything that made Sterling Ranch a high-quality development will be required for the Waterton Business Park. The key impacts, including the Waterton Business Park into Sterling Ranch, will be when the Waterton Business Park joins the Sterling Ranch PD, it will be serviced by the Sterling Ranch Community Authority Board. It will operate under the same guidelines and the standards of the rest of Sterling Ranch. Notable continuing commitments of the Sterling Ranch PD that will carry over. Kevin mentioned that we pay $9,000 per lot in fees and voluntary fees. What we're talking about now with the PD is the voluntary fees that Sterling Ranch pay. We will continue to pay a school capital mitigation funding of $1,500 per single-family home and $750 for multifamily home. And we will pay a highway and regional road system development fee to pay our pro rata share of approximately $4,000 per unit, and that is inflation adjusted. (1520.02) wants us to be consistent with the intent, efficient development, and preservation of the entire plan development. So a picture says 1,000 words, and you can kind of see how this really does fit in with the existing footprint. With the expanded Sterling Ranch PD, we will have 3 wildlife corridors. We have the Willow Creek corridor, that's 1,000 feet wildlife corridor that goes through Sterling Ranch. We have the Sterling Ranch Gulch Wildlife Corridor, and we will pick up the Laviers Community Wildlife Corridor. And those will all be managed by the Sterling Ranch Community Authority Board. Waterton Business Park will be Zone D2 and Special Character Zone E. Burgess will also be zoned that, and that will preserve the intent of our village planning areas, which reflects moderate neighborhood density as seen in all the development in Sterling Ranch. Development will be governed by existing Sterling Ranch PD standards and commitments. It will also be served by the Sterling Ranch Community Authority Board water. There are retail water providers, sanitation, roads, parks, and their development standards. Sterling Ranch will continue to be served. The Waterton Business Park, as it comes into the Sterling Ranch PD, will be also served by the Douglas County Sheriff's Department, Public Schools, South Metro Fire, and Dominion Water and Sanitation District. They are our wholesale water provider. There's only one significant change internally into our PD, the existing footprint, and that is this land up here, the ARS property. It is currently operated as a sand, gravel, and recycling concrete business. It is zoned general industrial. It would also allow mining activities, and it's about 70 acres. We're going to request that this land become D2, so it's more compatible with the existing community. The owner of this property has given us permission, and there's written documentation in your staff report that we can ask for this zoning. So in the future, this will be more compliant with what we have being zoned in the rest of our development. So this land will remain suburban, all of it, really. The density will reflect suburban density like in Ridgegate, Highlands Ranch, Castle Rock. With the additional acreage that we're bringing in, we are asking for additional units, but that still is a very moderate 4 units per acre type of density. And that fits in very well with our existing Sterling Ranch footprint. We'll handle two criteria in one slide. 152003, whether the amendment will adversely affect the public interest or enjoyment of the adjacent land. With the addition of the Waterton Business Park, the Sterling Ranch development will remain a community with moderate suburban density. Our D2 planning area is aligned with other developments in Douglas County, as I just mentioned. The reality is that across the metro area, we are in desperate need of housing. Sterling Ranch strives to provide a path for affordable, attainable home ownership and is committed to providing these homes. 152004, whether the sole purpose of the amendment is to confer a special benefit upon an individual. To the contrary, in the additional acreage and inclusion into the Sterling Ranch PD benefits our existing communities in many ways by allowing infrastructure costs to be spread across the land, and it also is going to allow Sterling Ranch community and the people who live in Sterling Ranch the additional amenities just right across Moore Road. It's really exciting. We've talked a lot about water. Kevin outlined the submittal documents that we have met the 18A water, section 18A. We are in compliance with that. The new area is subject to the Sterling Ranch water appeal as amended in 2021. I want to talk a little bit about our referral process. We know that all the required documents were submitted. You have a lot of referral agencies that look at these documents. The Colorado, your own county water consultant, Applegate, has reviewed the application and has no concerns. The Douglas County Health Department has reviewed the application for sanitary services and showed no concerns after reviewing the provisions of sanitary services being provided by Dominion Water and Sanitation District. And the Colorado Water State Engineer showed no concerns related to the proposed rezoning. They stated that they would provide comments related to the Sterling Ranch water supply at subdivision. So at the preliminary plan, and we all understand this, we'll understand how much acreage of land that we will be looking at. We'll understand how much of that will be open space, what type of housing or retail or commercial will be included. And at that time, the state engineer will review the application and the water portfolio and issue an opinion. On the adequacy of water, it's a very extensive process, but it's not required at this level. And all the referral agencies have reviewed our packet extensively, and they have no concerns. 152006, the public facilities and services necessary to accommodate the proposed development will be available concurrently with the impacts of such development. With the inclusion of the additional land in the Chatfield urban area, the site will be joined by will join the Sterling Ranch PD, our planned development. This will provide the same levels of services to Waterton Business Park that are currently provided to Sterling Ranch community. The area will, of course, as I had mentioned before, be served by South Metro Fire, the Douglas County Library District, and Douglas County School District. And we're really excited about the new buildings that the districts that serve Sterling Ranch are building in our community currently. I'd like to point out we're going to have a neighborhood school. Douglas County School District is building a neighborhood school that's going to open up in 2027. John Adams Academy is going to open up in the fall of 2026. It's currently, if you drive down Waterton Road, you can see it's currently being built. It's a charter school. We're really excited about it. The Douglas County Library is building a building that should be a new library that should be open in 2027. And the Chatfield Basin Reclamation Facility that is being built currently is going to be open in 2027. So all of these amenities are going to be open in the next couple of years. So we absolutely do meet the requirements of 152006. Roadway capacity, Kevin talked a lot about the funding and what's going to happen. There's a list of the next 5 years, the roads that are going to be funded, and there's some of the beautiful infrastructure, Titan Road, the Eagle River Roundabout, that has already been built in Sterling Ranch. 2 items I'd like to cover because I know that in our referral comments, they were something that really is of interest to the people in the community. Moore Road and the widening of the Southern Connector are going to happen. Moore Road is scheduled to happen this year, the widening of Moore Road, and the Southern Connector is soon to follow. So some of these are in the next 5 years, some of them are in the next 10 years, but we have a lot of infrastructure coming in this area. So this is a great story for Sterling Ranch and the county to tell. It was really blighted land in need of a cleanup. It's a wildlife corridor in need of protecting. We're really excited about being able to protect that wildlife corridor. Communities that needed protection from industrial development at its doorstep, because that land is industrial, and if we wouldn't rezone it, it would be developed into industrial uses, which is not compatible for the Chatfield Basin. And we all know that we need attainable housing for families in Douglas County so that they can live the American dream. So I'd ask for your vote and your support of the 15th Amendment. Thank you for your time this afternoon, and we'll open it up for questions.
All right, thank you very much. I wonder if the board would entertain a brief recess before we take, we give questions.
Please, Mr. Chair.
All right. Hey, let's go ahead and take 10 minutes.
Okay.
That was a very extensive presentation. And let the board recess for 10 minutes, and then we'll be back, and we will go right into questions for the applicant.
Absolutely, thank you.
We'll recess for 10 minutes. Okay, folks, let's come back to order, please. All right, we had just concluded the applicant's presentation. Now's the time in our process. We'll turn back to the board for any questions for applicant, and then, of course, any follow-up questions to staff. Commissioner, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And my question for Kevin, actually, Mr. Jonk. There was a slide that you presented that showed, and it showed nearly $90 million of things going back for infrastructure and stuff. The question I didn't see answered on that was regarding a fire station in Sterling Ranch. What is the status of building a fire station in Sterling Ranch? I know it's not completely up to Sterling Ranch, but Sterling Ranch, I think, will be dedicating land to it. And then South Metro Fire is on their own planning to build something. But perhaps some details around the process.
Certainly. I'd actually like to invite Brock Smethels to the microphone to share about that planning for that.
Okay.
Mr. Smethels, you're no stranger to the board, but please do give your name, give your credentials, what capacity you're speaking on.
Sure. My name is Brock Smethils, Smethills. I'm president of Sterling Ranch Development Company. Our address is 8155 Piney River Avenue, Dougco. Ultimately, we've been working with South Metro Fire, particularly Mike Delaforno, for 2 to 3 years to site a fire station. They have a specialized software that looks for response times that would be effective across the entire master plan. And we have identified said site, and it will be in the west half of preliminary plan 7. And we will dedicate that land when we get closer to platting that portion of the property. They have also, I know the sheriff's office has looked at potentially cohabitating a facility near the EVOC, and it might even be on land adjacent to the land that was retained by the county that we would also be willing to dedicate to South Metro if that moves forward. So hope that helps.
It does, and I very much appreciate the efforts on behalf of the Sterling Ranch Corporation for making that possible. And it did occur to me in your answer, it's somewhat of a silly question. You're probably the only community, maybe in America, with a fire helicopter in your backyard. Yeah. But do want to know about that and glad that it's making progress for the whole community.
Yeah, and West Metro actually has a station in Roxborough, so we'd have a West Metro station adjacent to us and then a South Metro station inside of Sterling Ranch.
Okay, well,
as well as the
thank you.
Helitac.
Thank you. And then I was hoping to hear from Ms. Cole with Dominion Water, if you could approach. And I do see, and I did read through the entire board packet. It's about 650 pages long, but did read it over the last several days. And actually, we gave ourselves a little extra time, thankfully, between the Planning Commission hearing and this to be able to read it. But by my assessment, about 650 pages, and probably 1 out of 4 of those pages, 160, 170 pages of it dealing with water alone. Now, I read through that. I'm not sure the average citizen watching today has had that opportunity or will be able to read through that. It had tremendous data on historical use, on projected use, down to daily use, actually, of different segments, which I appreciated reading and learning about myself. But could you summarize those, 160, 170 pages into kind of your response to this application today?
And of course, Ms. Cole, please give us your name and your title that you're speaking under.
Yes, thank you, Commissioners. Andrea Cole, C-O-L-E, General Manager of Dominion Water and Sanitation District. We're located at 9250 East Costilla Avenue, Suite 400, Greenwood Village, Colorado 80112. Thank you, Commissioners. Chair Teal and Commissioner Van Winkle, appreciate this opportunity to come up and try to summarize the significant amount of work and pages that are in the report regarding water supply sufficiency. And so I think one of the key things, Commissioner Van Winkle, that you brought up was the amount of data. So we're very fortunate that we have these great partners here with the Sterling Ranch Development Company as well as Sterling Ranch Community Authority Board. And so through their efforts, we have every single home within Sterling Ranch has both indoor and outdoor meters. And all of that information is evaluated on a daily basis. And we're able to confidently say what the usage is for each of those different product types, be it a large single-family equivalent, a smaller single-family equivalent, an attached unit, or a multifamily unit. And with that data, we can confidently project out how much water we have today and how much water we need in the future as they continue to grow and develop into their product types. What you've noticed is for the additional units, we're not really sure what those units are going to be, what product type they're going to be. And so that's why we rounded up to that higher 0.25 acre-feet per equivalent or per an EQR. And that gives us some flexibility and some planning buffer so that, because we know that some facilities are going to have a larger water footprint than other facilities within that area. And so knowing that we have that buffer and flexibility allows us with confidence to say that we have the water sufficiency for this, not only the existing community, but the future development.
Okay. Well, I think that last line was the important one. So in my mind, the community is 25% built out, 75% more to go. And we today can't and aren't by law allowed to take in other factors. We're not looking at whether it should be an apartment complex or single-family home or anything. We can't look at that today. But it sounds like Dominion Water looked at it and created an estimate for the plan it is today, and the plan, assuming this passes and there is sufficient water, without doubt.
That's correct. And as they continue to, hone in on what that development's going to be, then we can start to look at it with a finer tooth comb and parse out the water supply for each of those different facilities.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to hear it directly from the water provider and water district itself.
Mr. Smethills would like to also come up.
Mr. Smethills.
Sorry, I just want to put this on the record as it pertains to Section 18A of the Douglas County zoning resolution. Sterling Ranch has a water appeal. Under Section 18A, we're able to propose an alternative means for securing water, and that water appeal was approved by the board in 2013 and then subsequently litigated all the way to the Colorado Court of Appeals, where it was affirmed as part of the original zoning. And in that water appeal, it has us proving out water sufficiency at the time of preliminary plan, not at zoning. And now the Section 18A actually, and Katie or planning staff can correct me on this, but I believe Section 18A actually now follows that as well, where water sufficiency is found at preliminary plan. Since we're at the zoning stage, when we go to further subdivide the property, we will have to provide water information. Generally, those water packets that Dominion provides are about 400 to 500 pages long. They are reviewed by the state water resource engineer and determined if it is sufficient for development, as well as the county's own consultants, and then that goes into a preliminary plan application at a later date. And that's, just wanted to make sure that was on the record and answer that question as well.
I appreciate that. I look forward to those future hearings and future documentation. But at least for today's purposes, and perhaps my questions are a bit premature, since we don't know exactly what will be brought before us in the future. But at least for today's purposes, I wanted to make sure to hear from the water provider themselves.
Thank you, Commissioner. Hey, I do have questions back to the plan. And Ms. Beckman, the question goes to the ARS property and the zoning there. I mean, I do see the owner of ARS here, so happy to hear from him if necessary. But give me a little more detail. And I apologize, I know you covered it, but I'm still not quite certain. We're making the change to zoning. It is going to be a residential area, but please explain to me, is ARS still going to continue there with their current operations? And we're doing the zoning with that allowance, with the capability of a future residential, much like the rest of the community?
Sure. I think for background, that only a small portion of the ARS parcel is being rezoned today.
Okay.
Originally, that was contemplated to be, it's currently an active gravel pit. It will continue as an active gravel pit post the zoning, but it will now have an overlaying residential zoning on top of that kind of heavier use in the event of future redevelopment. That site was originally intended to be a reservoir. Under the original 2013 zoning, it had a special character zone as such and did not have any underlying residential zoning. So all we are doing today is adding residential zoning over what otherwise had no inherent zoning other than the current use, which is a gravel pit.
Okay. I think that answers my question. I am not sure I have any further questions. Commissioner, anything else from you before we go to public comment?
And for me, I look forward to public comment.
Indeed. All right, so let's go ahead and transition to public comment at this time. I did receive a sign-up sheet. I am not going in the order of the sign-up sheet. I want to make sure that people indicated opposition, in favor, and then there were some others. I'm going to try to organize the speakers so that there's some balance there. First one up, Marla Gifford. Ma'am, Marla Gifford. Ma'am, if you could please come forward. Do give us your name. You are no stranger to the board. We've seen you before, ma'am. But give us your name and, of course, tell us where you're from. And once you do, your time will begin.
Oh, this is always like this. Okay, there, how's that? Okay. My name is Marla Gifford, Gifford. I live at 6555 2nd Street in Leviers. I have been a proud employee employed by Douglas County, Highlands Ranch, Castle Rock Rec Centers specifically, and I've been there for 12 years. Teaching and learning all about different sports complexes and centers and things like that. I also teach at a place called Wide Open in Sedalia, and I also taught at Sterling Ranch Days up in the amphitheater, which is absolutely beautiful, by the way. And I have been to several events at homes in Sterling Ranch where they wanted me to come and teach. So I lived in Leviers for 21 years, but I have literally taught thousands of Douglas County residents through the years, and I'm proud of that, proud to be a part of that. I want to thank Kevin real quick. He has helped me understand a lot of this. As you can see from the overwhelming nature of the presentation, if I were hearing this for the first time and hadn't had any contact with Kevin, I would probably say I can't even go there. But it's a tremendous project. I am absolutely not opposed, just so everyone knows, to all of this. But I do have some concerns, and I do have some thoughts that I just want to share with you. We all in Leviers, and in Douglas County for that matter, take a lot of personal ownership in that open space that's out there. And I mean all of Douglas County. People bicycle, they walk, they come up there sometimes, drive up there just to watch the sunset. So it's all of Douglas County. It's all of Castle Rock and everybody around us. This has felt rushed in the respect, not because you didn't do things in time, but there is such an enormous quantity of information. The amendment itself is 400 pages. I have it sitting on my desk at home. There's such an enormous amount of information to digest, and such wonderful but enormous amount of projects that are on board. So it seems like to me like it has been rushed in that regard. We haven't had a town meeting in Leviers. I would like to see that happen
please
very
wrap up
quickly.
your comments.
People don't know about that. So, okay?
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Next up, Paul Messinich. Mr. Messinich, please obviously give us your name and tell us where you're from, sir.
My name is Paul Messinich, M-E-S-S-E-N-I-C-H, and I have several properties on Moore Road, 8045 North Moore Road, and 7745, and another parcel also in Douglas County. So I'm a land steward who supports responsible and sustainable growth, governance by the people, due process, and minimizing the long-term risk of short-sighted decisions. Sterling Ranch Amendment 15 increases the PD cap from 12,050 to 16,050 homes, an additional 4,000 homes. Under the county's zoning framework, this is a fundamental change. Zoning precedent is the core issue. I asked the county to state clearly whether it has ever approved an increase of 4,000 homes through a major amendment without rezoning. Zoning boundaries exist to protect public when scale and impacts change this dramatically. Second, process and land redesignation. The amendment relies on land from recently approved land exchange and redesignates county open space and land used for emergency vehicle operations. including areas that have supported helicopter-based fire mitigation. Repurposing land with public safety value and to enable major residential expansion requires heightened scrutiny and clear justification. Third, missing studies. An expansion of 16,050 homes should require updated, complete studies, not letters or assurances, a new traffic study, a full environmental study, given known contamination, a new comprehensive water study. Fourth, water supply risk. The letter asserting water availability comes from Dominion itself, which is a conflict of interest and not a suitable or independent analysis. More than 50% of the supply is groundwater, which is not renewable. The remainder depends on contracts with Aurora that expire. The public has not been shown backup plan for drought, contract expiration, or low reservoir conditions. And these fees for approving the additional homes get placed onto the taxpayers with no assurance that they can deliver a full 16,000
Sir,
homes in the future.
if you could please wrap up your comments.
Done.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next up, Robert Howard, please. Mr. Howard, please again state your name and tell us where you're from, sir.
Robert Howard, HOWARD, 7843 Hillcrest Drive in Leviers. I'm here to support this application and amendment today. As you know, Leviers is a very special place in Douglas County, and I think in all of Colorado, and I think that Sterling Ranch, in acquiring this land and in their plans for it, has done a really nice job in preserving what's great about the historic community and the buffer zone and the wildlife around our village, while also making room for new amenities, bringing more positive things to Northwest Douglas County. So, you know, I've had a chance to work with Susan and Kevin and the whole team extensively over the last year and a half since the first CMP map change. They reached out to me just as a known member of the community who'd done other land use work in the past. And more recently, over the last few months, they helped both me and my neighbors, many of whom are here today, just get comfortable with exactly what the plan's going to be for that open space. Ultimately, it's a huge downzoning for us in terms of the area directly adjacent to Leviers. My home is currently adjacent to that rural residential that is empty, and it'll eventually be open space conservation, which is fantastic. So in the context of Leviers Village and Leviers rural community, I think this is a huge win for everybody. And I'm really excited to be able to be part of something that balances the history and nature and wildlife that we all value so much in Leviers rural community with new amenities, opportunities for new people to buy homes in Douglas County, in Sterling Ranch. And it seems like a great balance. And I, as a Leviers resident, have been really happy with how Sterling Ranch has handled it. And I'm excited for great things for both of our communities. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Ann Shefflin, please. Bless you. Ma'am, please do restate your name for the record and tell us where you're from.
My name is Ann Shefflin, Sheflin, and I live in Plum Valley Heights and have for 39 years. Can I ask a favor before I start talking? Can we bring up the map that shows the extent of this land acquisition?
Okay, let's go ahead. See, the time hasn't started. Yeah, could we adjust to the map?
That one's fine. That one's fine.
Ma'am, begin and your time will begin.
Okay. So my concern is, which I relayed in my response to the Planning Commission, is to say that this has been in the plan for years. That little strip next to Plum Valley Heights on the east side of Moore Road was never discussed in the one meeting that Susan Beckman and Kevin came and talked to Plum Valley Heights about. Never discussed. That is an extension of the Waterton Business Park. The Waterton Business Park is being planned to be extended across or adjacent to an equestrian community. Do you know what the safety of our horse and riders is going to be with that noise? I don't understand how this can be thrown in here without any input from Pleasant Valley Heights, which, to be honest, Levere's may support this because they have a great wildlife corridor next to them. Meanwhile, this development is right against an existing community that's been an equestrian community since the early 70s. That's a real problem for us. And the fact that I agree this is being pushed through because this was never, ever told to us, just like Mr. Masinich has commented on. And to have A1, which is what that is currently zoned, changed to E1 without any consultation with those that are directly affected, to me is unconscionable. I am definitely voting no on this, and our entire community is voting no on this, because this has not been planned through. This is being pushed through by Sterling Ranch and the county, is the way we look at it. So that's my comments.
Thank you, ma'am. We do appreciate your comments. Next up, Sharon Caldwell, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Siobhan Caldwell. I'm manager of the Douglas County School District's Planning Department and providing public comment on behalf of the school district this afternoon. I want to start by clarifying the school district does not object the proposed 15th Amendment to the Sterling Ranch PD. This is more of a getting on the record and clarifying our understanding of what was negotiated during the Sterling Ranch 13th Amendment, further partnership and negotiations. So our understanding is that we do support this, granted that two critical conditions stated in the district's referral letter are acknowledged and understood. The first being that the school district may request additional acreage to accommodate the need generated by any residential units beyond the currently entitled 12,050, and that the applicant will work with the school district on any potential changes to school site acreage and/or location as and if needed with these additional units. These conditions were raised during discussions between the school district and Sterling Ranch regarding the 13th Amendment to the PD, and ultimately were included in sections S-1.2A1, school site dedication, and S-1.2A3, school site relocation of the Sterling Ranch PD 13th Amendment. We ask that you include these requirements with adoption of the 15th Amendment to the Sterling Ranch PD as well, which is my understanding is that they are in the conditions as they were in the 13th Amendment. Using real-time student generation ratios, the school district anticipates the additional units proposed with this 15th Amendment to the PD will generate approximately about 800 to 1,000 additional students upon full build-out. This is in addition to those students that are expected to be generated by the previously entitled 12,050 units. And based on these projections, the additional 4,000 units may create the need for additional school land acreage or an adjustment to the sites identified in the 13th Amendment. As per the current PD, this need would be confirmed at the time of preliminary plan. Finally, it's important that the commission, am I out of time?
Go ahead and wrap up your comments, ma'am.
Okay. Finally, it's important that the commission and the public understand that growth does not pay its own way when it comes to new school construction. Developers' land dedications play a critical role in ensuring the district can provide schools for our future students, and it's crucial we maintain the right to request additional acreage if and when the need arises. Even with land dedications and voluntary capital fees paid by the developer, the district still relies on our taxpayers to fund the estimated $60 million for an elementary school and $100 million for a joint middle high school. Thank you for your attention and consideration on this matter. We look forward to continuing our work with Sterling Ranch and the county and continuing to provide quality neighborhood schools for current and future Sterling Ranch residents.
Thank you, Ms. Caldwell. Ephraim Glass. Mr. Glass, you are no stranger to the board, but please do confirm your name and tell us where you're from, sir.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Ephraim Glass. I'm here to represent Roxborough Village Metro District. We are not for or against this amendment. What we do want to mention is that most of our residents are concerned about evacuations, especially because we've had multiple wildfires. And if you visited Roxborough, it's well known for its wind, and we could easily have another Marshall fire in that area. Currently, there are no requirements by Douglas County to do an evacuation study, but most of our residents want that study to show what infrastructure is needed, what road infrastructure is needed to get people out safely if there is a fire where people do have to be evacuated. And it's not just our residents, it's our neighboring communities, including Sterling Ranch, that are concerned about this. If there is something that the county can do to make that evacuation study happen so that we know that the infrastructure is built in advance of needing it. So as Sterling Ranch builds out, there's going to be problems there. And right now, with how infrastructure is built, it usually waits until there is a need based on regular traffic. And that's not what an evacuation study does. An evacuation study is very different from a normal traffic study because you're having a mass of people trying to get out on the roads. And what we really want to see is the county taking the extra step, whether that's through OEM or another group, to do that study so that we know that the infrastructure that is probably already planned in the 2050 transportation plan is done in advance so that we don't have any issues. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Mr. Glass. Sam Greshey. Sir, I really hope I got your last name right. But please go ahead and give us your name. Tell us where you're from.
My name's Sam Greska, G-R-E-S-K-A. I live in Luviers. I was born in Waterton Canyon, so 23 years. I've been right in that area, about a 4-mile radius. Not the perfect model citizen, but historically, you know, I have a lot of ties to this place, so I really enjoy it, really enjoy Douglas County. I am in favor in what Sterling Ranch Development Company is doing. I was born where Ravenna is now, so I've dealt with development that I have not enjoyed. And I've now talked with developers that I have really enjoyed and have made great concessions. Really a believer in people being able to use their properties for what they want to do. So they're doing a great job with that, I believe, and making concessions that they didn't have to. Very happy to talk with us. So overall, very generous. I think that's about all I had to say, but I do support what they're doing and doing here today. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Very much appreciated. Mark Hampton. I know Mark was here earlier. I don't see Mark. I don't see Mr. Hampton. Doug Chestnut, please. Mr. Chestnut, you are no stranger to the board, but please do validate your name and where you're from.
Papers I'd like to submit.
Please go ahead and submit those to staff.
There's one for staff and there's 3 for county commissioner. I guess Abe's
Thank-
not here today.
Thank you, sir. And again, please do validate your name. Tell us where you're from, sir.
Doug Chestnut, C-H-E-S-T-N-U-T-T, from the Chatfield Basin. You'll have a thing I gave you. Sterling Ranch are magnificent marketers. But, you know, there comes a time we need to ditch the sales pitch and look at a bait and switch that's going on. we're talking about the southern stuff, but what we really need to focus on too is the density is the key here. They're adding a lot of density. That's premature. Currently, they're at 3,000 units, 10,000 people. They want to bump that all the way. They're approved up to 12,050 homes, which is about 36,000 people. They want to add 4,000 more, which will bring another 12,000. So you're going to look at 58,000 people. That's kind of premature. Let's wait till they have the infrastructure in place. From water, for sewer, from sanitation, traffic. Traffic, they say they pay their fair share. In yellow, CDOT requires, I won't read the revised statute. That hasn't been done. They say it's been done. An SLS, there was a PEL done 10 years ago. That's outdated, and that wasn't a 1601-1. And that should be done, needs to be done. They don't talk about Wadsworth 121 and the infrastructure and the impact there that's crucial. So there's a lot of things there that just needs to be looked at. And when they're talking about $32 million toward widening Santa Fe, they did $18 million for an internal road that we supported, we paid for. They're supposedly paying us back, but infrastructure is huge. What is it going to cost and the impact? And I think that's why it hasn't been done, because the people I've talked to at CDOT and the things I've seen in the past, looking at other things, it's huge. And I think we need to pause and stamp down the density. I would appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chestnut. We do appreciate it. Katie Michaels, please. Ma'am, go ahead and confirm your name for us and tell us where you're from.
Hi, my name is Katie Michaels, spelled M-I-C-H-E-L-S, and I live in Plum Valley Heights. I'm here today to speak on behalf of my husband, our 2 elementary-age kids, the Plum Valley Heights community, and myself. I'm speaking against Sterling Ranch's request today, not because I'm against development, but I'm speaking against moving forward now because this process feels so rushed, and major public safety questions remain unresolved. The major amendment increases allowed homes by 33% and rezones about 600 acres into the Sterling Ranch plan development. That scale affects roads, emergency access, water and wastewater capacity, environmental safeguards, and the public cost of required infrastructure. We are concerned the public process isn't keeping pace with the decisions. On August 15th of 2025, Douglas County Planning Resources emailed me verbatim that there was no current land use submittal in place for the Moore Road parcels. Yet, less than 2 months later, on October 14th, when announcing the land swap, County Materials described 23.8 acres of county-owned land as for commercial development prior to the rezone, the A1, listed as commercial development in all public materials, including the Moore Road parcels. I understand future site-specific rezoning and development reviews are still required, but when County Materials label those parcels as commercial development, it leads residents to believe the outcome is already decided before the required reviews occur. That undermines public trust in this entire process. And the most immediate safety issue is roads and emergency access. Last week, on 3 consecutive afternoons at 3:40 p.m., I sat in a 15-minute backup from Santa Fe just to turn onto Titan Road. For more than a half mile, cars were using the shoulder of Santa Fe to avoid blocking the right lane of Santa Fe. That's hazardous today. Add thousands more homes and conditions worsen. And in wildfire evacuation, lives will be in danger. Commissioners, I understand you can't make everybody happy, and that's not what I'm asking for today. But you can insist on safety, transparency, and a timeline that allows for meaningful review. I'm asking you to vote no on this amendment until independent, public-facing analysis shows that at full build-out, we can safely handle traffic and wildfire evacuation, long-term water and wastewater capacity, environmental safeguards,
Ma'am, please
and
do
the
wrap
total
up your
cost to
comments.
Douglas County taxpayers. Thank you for the time today and for your service to our county.
Thank you, ma'am. Your comments are definitely appreciated. That concludes everyone I had on the sign-up sheet for this matter, and I will pull the board. Should we allow additional comment? We have completed all those who signed up on the sign-up sheet.
I did sign up. I should be on that list.
Yeah, let's make sure we got everyone that signed up. And I think
Unless I'm missing a sheet.
It was on a fresh sheet. They just given us a new sheet.
I stand corrected, everyone. Okay, hang on a second, guys.
Yep, second sheet, so.
Okay. All right. Tell you what, let's go to, Kristen McLaughlin?
Yeah.
Please, if you would. Ma'am, please do confirm your name for the record
yes, I will.
and tell us where you're from.
Okay. My name is Kristen McLaughlin. That's Kristen, McLaughlin. And I've been living in Leviers for about 18 months. What I'm here about is land that's been promised and protected 3 times over, as a conservation easement, as a buffer for the town of Leviers, and as a wildlife corridor. To all appearances, the conservation easement blends with the protected Douglas County open space and seamlessly creates a wildlife corridor and community buffer. In reality, there's a thin sliver between them, unlabeled on the maps, and there are separate filings with the county that call for construction of pipelines connecting the Sterling Ranch cab system and the Levier system, along with a line for the proposed ranch development across Highway 85, and the construction of a master water meter vault connecting them all right there. This is a major omission that should have been included in the documentation presented before the Planning Committee and the public by the applicant, because these plans are joined at the hip to Amendment 15. Sterling Ranch and Dominion are involved in both of these projects, and when it's complete, Dominion is going to own the land, and this will encroach on land that both Sterling Ranch and the county say should be set aside for conservation. The location of these planned improvements is also going to have a dramatic impact on wildlife in the corridor that deer and elk use. It's unclear, and this is important, if all the agencies that sent in their comments about the proposed 15th Amendment were made aware of this construction, and whether, it's unclear about how this very relevant information might have affected the recommendations to the commissioners. It's disturbing that the plans for the improvements to the Leviers water system now include a pipeline to the proposed ranch development. We can only surmise that plans for this location range beyond the scope of the construction that this committee has already approved. Transparency was definitely needed here, and we didn't get it. Sterling Ranch was well aware of this construction and the impact it would have on promises made to the community, while the community didn't even know what questions to ask. People did not have the information they needed to make informed decisions, and that's why I'm asking the committee to delay this vote and decision-making on Amendment 15 until there is full transparency and we can be sure that what we're seeing on these maps is what we will get. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. James Gifford? Well, sir, I will ask you to please confirm for the record your name and tell us where you're from.
Hi, I'm James Gifford. I live in Leviers. Hats off to Sterling Ranch for quite the elaborate proposal. I'm a construction guy, and my concern, well, you've heard a bunch of different concerns, actually, so I don't know if I want to give you a bunch more, but my concern is that the Dominion's going to be tying into Leviers water, and the pipeline's running through that wildlife corridor as their first plan, I believe. And if that's in fact the case, then with that construction, as well as the sports complex going up right next door to each other on either side of the wildlife corridor, that's going to drive away all the wildlife. So why the corridor? I mean, you know, I've been there and done that. It's road graders and leveling out for playing fields and everything. It's great. I'm not opposed to it, but if you're going to include wildlife to be around it, then that's just impossible. Widening roads, everything about it. It's just going to drive the wildlife away. Kevin, thanks for helping Mom. The other concern I have is the sports complex is going to be built over the old dynamite factory, and there's blasting caps and everything else underneath there, and kids aren't supposed to play there. Why are they building that there? Why not put it in the middle of Douglas County or somewhere else, where it's more convenient for everybody. Other than that, I appreciate the efforts that they've made for the watershed that everybody's talking about from Levere's. I don't think everybody realizes the impact that this is going to make, but I'm all for the rezoning if that makes a difference. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. Mr. Whataburger. Mr. Whataburger, you are no stranger to the board, but please do confirm your name and tell us where you're from.
Hi, name is Jim Wattenberger. Gentlemen, I come with 32 years of professional firefighter experience, retiring as an assistant chief of the largest fire department in the United States. That's CAL FIRE in California. I also reviewed the proposed emergency plan for the city of Paradise. We failed. We put down our wildest dreams, and it blew past us in a heartbeat. I fear not only the Marshall Fire, but the Paradise Fire, and unfortunately, maybe predicting the future of Douglas County. I have concerns about the water supply. There's already been water supply concerns throughout Sterling Ranch. Certainly, building 4,000 additional housing units with the possibility of 8,000 additional vehicles causes me concern for an evacuation plan. So I propose the following conditions to be included in anything into the future on this situation. I ask for the following additions: that no homes be built closer than 10 feet from eave to eave to allow the public safety employees, South Metro Fire, a chance to suppress just a normal structure fire. Homes to be built with interior fire sprinklers. Homes to be built with home hardening features, including Zone 0 landscaping, amber-resistant and heat-closing venting. It's already been mentioned, so I had it on my notes. The map inclusion of a new fire station to increase response times, including a sheriff's substation. Right now, you have West Metro, and you have a South Metro station clear on the east side of Santa Fe. For 18,000 homes, that's insufficient.
Sir, if you could please wrap up your comments.
Okay. The addition for additional acreage for schools, and one last inclusion, and that would be for future home buyers, a notification that you're buying a home next to a future EVOC course for emergency vehicles making a lot of noise, and for the future Helitack base, that they not complain about the noise and head off any future noise lawsuits. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. Michelle Murphy. Looks like Michelle Murphy. Not seeing Michelle Murphy. Okay, that concludes our sign-up sheet at this time. Let's return to the applicant to respond to items that were brought out in public comment, please.
Thank you, Commissioners. And I would ask Brett Thomas if you would pull up our presentation and go to one of the last slides. I'd like to utilize that map some in my responses. And so we're going to kind of categorize these responses, Commissioners, if you don't mind. For emergency access, we heard some concerns about that, about the backup of Titan Road. I would like, and the evacuation routes, and also our work with emergency management, Sterling Ranch and Douglas County. And then any of the wildfire concerns, I'd like to bring up Kevin Jonk. So after I go through my the comments, responses, then we'll bring up Kevin to address access, evacuations, any environmental issues like the discussion about the blasting caps and also fire and wildfire concerns. Nope, not that one. That's Kevin's. The one for the, oh, not that one. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about, respond to the comments about it being rushed, because one of the disconnects with some of the processes that Sterling Ranch Development goes through that the commissioners you're aware of, but you don't necessarily get to see the presentations, are the comprehensive map amendments. I think we have about 1,200 pages of staff reports for the 2 comprehensive plan map amendments that we've had over the last 18 months. And I'd just like to explain a little bit about what happened is with the land exchanges, the pink land was the first land that unanimously the Planning Commissioners supported, bringing that land into the Leviers rural community into the Chatfield urban area. The red land is, a lot of that is county property, some of it's Sterling Ranch property, but that was the second hearing, the second staff report, the second outreach in the last 18 months that we had with our neighbors that brought that additional land into the Chatfield urban area. And then, of course, this is the wildlife corridor that is actually, after feedback from residents, we left it in the Leviers rural community, but it is being brought into the Sterling Ranch PD so that we can maintain it. That wildlife corridor is not pristine. As you saw, what Kevin showed some pictures of, just the industrial junk that is out there that needs cleaned up, the fencing that does not allow the elk right now to go into the wildlife corridor. There's a lot of work that needs to be done on that. So this is a rezoning. I heard some comments state that this wasn't a rezoning. We had 2 sets of criteria, one for the inclusion into the Sterling Ranch PD and one for the rezoning. We comply with all approval criteria and we've submitted all required studies necessary for this stage of approval. Again, with outreach, since before Christmas last year, Kevin Jonk and I have gone out and spoke with neighborhood groups, communities, one-on-ones. We've had large meetings in Leviers for one Roxborough, which represents all the metro districts in the Roxborough area, and also with Plum Valley. Did long presentations like this, PowerPoints, in those neighborhood meetings. When we met with Plum Valley, this land was going to be used as a industrial. The county was going to build a facilities fleet area there with mag chloride domes and snow plows. It was going to be very industrial. Well, that has changed. Actually, what we're doing today is actually much better zoning. The facilities that the county is going to place there are not mag chloride domes. It's much, much improved. So there have been some changes, but the buffer for Plum Valley is actually much more compatible than it was during that first meeting. In between that time, over these last 18 months that we've been having neighborhood meetings, courtesy notices were sent to everyone. There were about 3,000 courtesy notices that were sent to abutting neighbors that also outlined exactly what was happening in these areas. A D2 and a special character zone E is actually a much less kind of use than what was going to be there previously. We thank Siobhan Caldwell and Douglas County School District for being here. They showed up for both for the last Planning Commission hearing and testified for both the CMP map amendment and also the rezoning and PD inclusion. Very positive. As Siobhan stated, the 13th Amendment really set the course, really set the path, really dictated what we will do for any kind of future school land. If there is additional need in the future for any additional school site land. We will have that discussion at preliminary plan. The 13th Amendment that was approved by the Board of County Commissioners and supported by the school district really outlines that process. And we understand that growth should pay its own way. That's why for the school district, we have agreed to the $1,500 per lot for single-family homes, voluntary fee that goes to pay for any additional capital mitigation costs that they may have, and $750 for any multifamily home unit in Sterling Ranch. I would like to talk a little bit about the system-level study. There was a comment that no system-level study has been done, but there was an extensive system-level study. In our PD, it requires a system-level study on all roads that would be impacted by Sterling Ranch to be done back in 2013. In 2014, as a requirement of the Sterling Ranch PD, a system-level study was prepared and paid for by Sterling Ranch. It's called the Northwest Douglas County Feasibility Study for Highway 85 and State Highway 121, with an emphasis on the development of conceptual alternatives. It was prepared by Douglas County in collaboration with the Colorado Department of Transportation and Jefferson County. In a follow-up document dated August 22, 2014, Art Griffith, who you know does most of your capital improvement long-range planning, worked with consultants to allocate pro rata share costs for future projects for Sterling Ranch so that we could pay that voluntary fee for highways and regional road projects. And they took the information from the Northwest Douglas County Feasibility Study for US 85 and State Highway 121, and we have a list of projects that in the future we could be a partner in. That's why we paid $32 million for the recent Santa Fe project. That is a project that Highlands Ranch didn't pay any additional money. Roxburgh didn't pay any additional money. We want to pay for those regional roads and highway improvements, and so that system level study was done. We pay a fee that's about $4,000 per unit. It's inflation adjusted, and we did check that box with our PD requirement. And if you ask your staff, I'm sure they can get you those documents. Again, we had concerns about this project being rushed. It just takes a lot of process. We have the CMP map amendment, moving it from the Leviers rural community into the Chatfield Basin. We will have the rezoning and the inclusion into the PD. Then there will be minor development plats and preliminary plans. At each level, there's different studies and different requirements. At this level, we have met all the submittal requirements. We have met everything that we needed to support, and I actually think the staff agreed with that we have met the 18A requirements for water for this process. And so at the next step, there will be additional information needed. And we have a lot, we could do another PowerPoint, we could go through a lot more information, but I think the staff has confirmed that we meet the water and the wastewater sanitary services requirements for this level. Open space conservation and utilities that might be built in that wildlife corridor. We're really excited about the wildlife corridor. If you look at the two Sterling Ranch wildlife corridors, the Sterling Gulch Wildlife Corridor and the Willow Creek Wildlife Corridor, they are pristine. They are beautiful. This wildlife corridor has a lot of issues. It's got a, as I mentioned, it has a lot of rehabilitation that needs to be done. There will be some utilities that go through the wildlife corridor, but we will restore the land, and like any other, your open space or sometimes the utility needs to go through. We'll be very careful about working with the Division of Wildlife and Open Space in Douglas County. And once again, on our water supply, we had extensive referrals on the CMP map amendment and also the rezoning and the PD amendment. And the referral agencies that you would be most concerned about, the Colorado Department of Colorado State Water Engineer, your own health department, and Applegate, your own water consultant. They have reviewed these documents. There have been communications between Dominion and these consultant referral agents. We don't just send a referral comment out. A lot of times they'll call us or they'll call the county, and then we work together to make sure things are very clear. They had no concerns about this application, and we meet 18A. It conforms to 18A, and at this stage, we are set. I would like to bring Kevin Jonk up because I do think he can really get into the details of some of the concerns, because we all are really concerned about wildfire in that area, and fire concerns where we understand that we have some road improvements that need to be done in a timely manner because of that little bit of backup on Titan Road and Santa Fe, and the environmental issues on that property. I'm going to bring Kevin up. He'll address those, and then I'll come back up to see if there's any other questions, and we'll wrap it up.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Jonk?
Yes, thank you, Commissioners. Kevin Jonk again with Sterling Ranch Development Company. Just a quick clarification to one of Ms. Beckman's statements regarding public outreach. She had mentioned that meetings were before Christmas last year. That is actually meetings started before Christmas of 2024. In relation to communities like Plum Valley Heights, I mean, actually their partnership with Sterling Ranch stretches back to the original zoning. We've abutted them. Thank you. We've abutted them since the OG days. So they've received. We've worked with them over the years to put several layers of considerations in for their community, special character zones to ensure there are generous setbacks away from their fence lines, as well as commitments from originally from the McCormick family, who no longer reside in Plum Valley Heights, to do like-for-like development. Obviously Sterling Ranch is more of a suburban residential community, and they are more of an estate residential community. So, we've honored that to put multi-acre properties and open spaces directly abutting them. And the cool thing is that you can go out there today and see those, those setbacks and buffers in action. Furthermore, in addition to all of those public meetings and outreach, as you may have heard this evening, many of these neighbors have my personal cell phone number, and they're always welcome to reach out, and I welcome them to walk through exactly what we're doing so that they're aware of what's coming next. And you've heard some of that testimony tonight. Let me just go through my notes and switch the slide for addressing addressing fire evacuation, wildfire concerns. So while this is not a part of the approval criteria that's being considered this afternoon, the map on this slide shows that we do have 5 routes in and out of the Chatfield Basin currently. This compares us favorably to other communities in Douglas County. Other master plans, like say the Canyons, have only like 2 or 3. And as you saw from our presentation, we are continuously investing and constructing more infrastructure to ensure we have adequate road capacity. Past examples include the construction of Waterton Road, as well as Douglas County's construction of the Airport Road Southern Connector. An example of that continuous investment and expansion before it is a sort of a dire need is more road. The widening there, which is set for this year and is funded by Sterling Ranch and not by any other community in the basin. So Sterling Ranch does indeed pay its fair share. Now, with regards to Titan Road and Santa Fe Drive, we absolutely agree. There's 2 projects, particularly, I won't thumb back through the 40 slides that we have, but that are addressing just that. And I would I would encourage you to invite county staff and engineering up to verify my statements, but it's two steps that we're addressing there, where there's going to be a widening of Santa Fe for that exact condition of, the shoulder backups that happen during peak times, as well as the intersection improvements that will improve the flow overall. Continuing on fire evacuation, while it's not been the main focus from our initial meetings with South Metro and Office of Emergency Management yet, we're meeting with them continuously. We're committed to working with them to prioritize safety in the basin. When it comes to some of the proposed conditions that were heard in public comment, a lot of the sort of construction considerations are already incorporated into the building codes that the county is not just observing, but they are adopting even further levels yet this year to address things such as eave separation. For instance, if a building is 10 feet apart or closer, the building code already mandates that those eaves be, the fire rating be upped on that. But really, Sterling Ranch is leading the way in not just the Chatfield Basin, but in the state of Colorado when it comes to wildfire prevention and mitigation. We do things like using concrete fencing. What we learned from the Marshall Fire. I sit on the board of the Home Builders Association of Metro Denver and was part of the Marshall Fire Task Force that worked on getting people back into their homes and fire prevention in economical ways that didn't stretch their insurance dollars to a point where they couldn't afford to move back into their lots. But we found in the Marshall Fire that the cedar wood fencing that is present in most homes in the metro area basically served as a path to each home. We don't do that at Sterling Ranch. We use concrete fencing. We use asphalt shingles. All of our vegetation is actively managed. It's mowed and it's also grazed, providing what we call fuel breaks and defensible areas. The last thing I'll say about wildfire prevention mitigation is that there's obviously the state statute that's coming down for adoption in April through July, the Colorado Wildfire Resiliency Code. We've been meeting with the building department to ensure that these new coming codes are ones that we can comply with. And in fact, we're the biggest builder in the Chatfield Basin, and we're really the only one that is adopting this on a wide scale, because everything else is, for the most part, constructed. If you'll please pardon me, I switched my notes. Regarding the environmental comments about the former use of the Chemours property, what we've been referring to as the Waterton Business Park this afternoon. Yes, the site, of course, hosted the Chemours DuPont dynamite facility. That facility has gone through decades of remediation. That site received a conditional closure in 2022 from CDPHE, which cleared it for development. So that site was going to be developed regardless by somebody. You've seen the photos from the presentation to know there's still those ruins and old remains from the factory on that property, and I want to be clear that those are not part of the Zebulon parcels that were transferred to the county. Sterling Ranch retained those factory remains. To continue my statement, they've been well documented and categorized into well-defined sort of waste units. Now, the factor to remember here is that they've been deemed, and I want to read a quote from CDPHE, that they do not pose a threat to human health and environment. Now, that is what CDPHE, the state, has said. No threat to health or environment. In technical terms, that means that there's no plumes expanding, and any contaminants that are still present are actively decaying, not spreading. And to further safeguard these areas, like I mentioned in my presentation, we're safeguarded through several measures. We are strictly regulated by CDPHE to follow a strict materials management plan and a notice of environmental use restriction. And on top of that, we are, Sterling Ranch, subject to ongoing monitoring of the site as well. So should we want to develop any of that land, demolish those ruins, haul them off, we're required to develop a specific work plan with CDPHE that they have to approve before we do anything. And we've actually prepared 2 of those plans. For one of them, we'll be starting here hopefully in the next month or so. And we're subject by CDPHE for daily inspection. So the state will be out there with us. So we're doing everything by the book, and we're prioritizing safety. I think that about covers what I have here in my notes. Should the board have any more questions?
All right. Thank you, sir. Any for Mr. Smethels, anything further?
Sure, I have a few extra comments to add, and then I believe Abby will step up as well. But again, I do want to touch on the water and wastewater infrastructure that was discussed earlier by public testimony. Ultimately, all of that infrastructure is predominantly buried, so there is no impact on wildlife associated with it, and it was part of the American Rescue Program Act funding commitment to work with the Range Metropolitan District in Leviers to provide water and wastewater utilities to that community, so it will ultimately better that community over time.
Yeah, please, it's okay.
Mr. Jonk.
Thank you, Commissioners. Kevin Jonk. That was the one item that I had missed in my notes. When it comes to the public testimony about construction activity driving away wildlife, it's something that we at Sterling Ranch have experience in. We've done it already in the vicinity of 2 wildlife corridors that are operating pristinely. When it comes to the utilities going into that corridor, again, as Brock mentioned, they're part of the American Rescue Plan Act. They're a crucial part to providing that fire suppression and hydrant infrastructure, that South Metro needs to maintain their #1 rating with the Insurance Services Organization, again, which that leads to the rates that people pay in the region. Unfortunately, that does kind of skirts and goes through the wildlife corridor, but that's something that, we're committed to working sensitively, just like we have with the other 2 wildlife corridors.
Mr. Smethels.
While Kevin was talking, Ms. Cole texted me to make sure that I referenced that the location and extent for those underground utilities was already approved by the Douglas County Planning Commission. The other topic, just with fire mitigation, I think what gets lost in this conversation, South Metro Fire is our fire service provider. They have responded to this application with no comment. But I do think it's important to bring up that with the new state regulations that Kevin introduced that is being required across the state of Colorado, some of our builders estimate that will add between $30,000 and $50,000 to the price of a house. It is not inexpensive for those fire protection as a result of the Marshall Fire, and that's been regulated at the state level and now is being adopted by the county. So I think it gets lost that we have a housing crisis while we also have a fire crisis. And I hope that the benefit or the value of those 2 different considerations are balanced appropriately. With respect to Mr. Chestnut's comments about the SLS was paid for in our original zoning. It's actually written into the 2013 zoning that we paid for half and the county paid for half. And that was, as we've stated on the record, that's been done for some time. Public Works and Engineering can certainly opine on that if they disagree. And finally, really with Plum Valley Heights and Mr. Misinik's comments, as Susan indicated, our commitment to Plum Valley Heights, we had 2.5-acre lots that were in Special Character Zone A. Those residential lots have been kept and are still within the master plan. This development is on the east side of Moore Road, so you have a fairly busy road disconnecting that community from the east half of this, and the portion that is most adjacent to Plum Valley was a part of the MAP plan that was approved last year. So that has been ongoing for, as Ms. Beckman indicated, for over a year. A small, about a 20-acre or 30-acre piece was added to it that included an additional 2 homes that would be adjacent to it from the previous plan amendment. So that has been out there for some time and has not changed. I would also like to just remind this board, to the south of the EVOC is actually Dyno Nobel, where they manufacture pretty caustic explosive materials there, due east of Mr. Masinik and just to the southeast of Plum Valley Heights. It is zoned heavy industrial. It is currently GI. What we are proposing here is much less impactful than anything that adjacent property has to those communities. And it is concurrent with what we've done in Sterling Ranch. And I believe that wraps up our comments, unless Abby wants to address exactions as our final closing statement.
Very well, ma'am. Counselor, please do give us your name and reiterate your credentials, please.
Yes, Commissioner. My name is Abby Kirkbride, Kirkbride, 2100 16th Street, Denver, Colorado, 80202. I'm counsel to Sterling Ranch, and I am just going to briefly address one legal topic following some comments that in particular Kevin and Susan addressed, which is that it's settled state and federal law that development impact fees or exactions must be proportionate and related to the development in question. And specific to some of the comments about traffic conditions on Santa Fe, it's not legal to make a single project solely responsible for what is really a regional transportation issue. And so I would encourage the commissioners to support the proposal in front of you tonight, because what Sterling Ranch is proposing, both in infrastructure improvements and fees, is appropriate to support transportation development proportional to the impacts of Sterling Ranch. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Mr. Smethels.
I apologize. Susan wanted me to just say we are okay with all the conditions that staff referenced. And I do have one thing. This was not brought up during public testimony, but has been circulated online comparing Sterling Ranch and our Metro District fees and costs and tax burdens to other communities across Sterling Ranch. And I think it's appropriate to address that, since that's been used as a reason not to approve this in the public ecosphere. And for that, I'd like to bring up Gary and Jessica from the Sterling Ranch Community Authority Board to discuss that.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Smethels. Gary, go ahead. Give us your name and tell us the capacity you're speaking in.
I'd be happy to do that. Gary Debus, DEBUS, General Manager, Sterling Ranch Community Authority Board, or Sterling Ranch CAB as we're called. Longtime resident of Douglas County, helped develop Highlands Ranch and have a lot of experience in all of these matters, so we appreciate that. We do have some handouts I'd like to, Jessica, if you wouldn't mind, that we will give to you. We have a couple of slides to show you as well. First of all, there's been a lot of discussion online and in e-newsletters that I've seen and things, and frankly, they're purposely inaccurate. I would say they're false, but there's a lot of words I could use. It's not misinformation, they're just thought wrong. If we compare Sterling Ranch to Highlands Ranch, which I've heard many times, that's one of the slides that you'll see, that one. I think that what's really important here is that, yes, our mill levies are more expensive than they are in Highlands Ranch. When we look at that, remember that Highlands Ranch began back in 1979. That's a few years ago. Gasoline prices were just 65 cents in 1978. They went up as we had some energy impacts then. But when you look at what gasoline prices have been as an example, these are things that people recognize. Today, or what they've been in the last 5 years, we've seen gasoline prices over $4. So when you look at something that was bonded indebtedness in 1979 compared to what it is today, there's obviously an increase in the costs. Sterling Ranch CAB provides all of the streets, the infrastructure, and we convey that or dedicate that land after an acceptance process to Douglas County. I'm going to have Jessica go ahead and walk through these slides for you. I think this is very important as we compare Sterling Ranch to other new build communities in Douglas County.
Jessica, ma'am, please do your name and the capacity in which you're speaking.
Yes, sir. Thank you. My name is Jessica Gottschalk, Gottschalk. I am with the Sterling Ranch Community Authority Board, colloquially called the CAB, and am Director of Resident Services and Community Experience there. Gary and I work hand in glove with our residents on educating them on a variety of areas that you've spoken about today. But one of them is the misconception that it is more expensive to own a home in Sterling Ranch than other areas of Douglas County. And by showcasing Douglas County's current master planned communities, helps provide our citizens and the community members more accurate comparative information. So on this slide, you'll see every year now we update this slide for our residents to show actual values from the Douglas County Assessor's website and compare them Sterling Ranch with McCanta, the Canyons, and Solstice, 3 other premier prominent master plan communities in Douglas County. All of the information here was compiled from the Douglas County Assessor's website and other publicly available sources like their HOA management companies and closing documents. The 2025 actual values for these 4 homes are very similar. And while I could explain property taxes and those other boring things, I'm just going to drop to the punchline here. If you look at the bottom and you see the actual values, their mills, their HOA fees, and their other Metro District fees, it's actually cheaper to live in Sterling Ranch than any of these other 4 master planned communities. Sterling Ranch Community Authority Board was built to perform governmental efficiencies. We do the work that 2 or 3 entities, Metro District Management, HOA Management, cities, et cetera, may do as one entity. So our residents see that when they look at their bottom line and what they pay. Furthermore, those HOA fees that are paid by some of the other entities are not tax deductible, where those of us that might be in the 25% tax bracket, you can deduct your property taxes from your federal tax. So that is just another way that our residents can save money. And last, I wanted to address some concerns or comments made regarding water and water use in Sterling Ranch. We pride ourselves as a community, as our residents and staff, in our renewable water system that we have. Much of the surrounding area uses a dwindling aquifer system, and our community and homes, as Kevin mentioned, building to higher wildfire standards, but also water management standards. And our homes are built with water efficiencies front of mind. Homes within Sterling Ranch use significantly less water than other homes built in Colorado. Our most recent water use analysis reported that single-family homes in Sterling Ranch use an average of 58,000 gallons of water a year. That report also notes that the average home in Castle Rock uses 72,000 gallons of water a year, and the average home in Highlands Ranch uses an average of 79,834 gallons of water a year. So our homes in Sterling Ranch are simply designed to use less water, therefore we need less water, and are able to accomplish our needs with less while maintaining that precious resource. The comments that have been made penalize our residents for using water and citing that we charge predominantly more for our water, where I went through our 2025 numbers, and as of December 31st, 2025, our Tier 1 rate of water versus all higher levels of water charges within the community, only 6% of our water last year was charged at a higher rate. So we do not penalize our residents for using water. We teach them water management and how to be effective. And it works really well for our community to conserve water use and help with that very precious resource here for Douglas County. So that's all we have.
Anything more from the applicant in response to commissioner questions and in response to public comment?
We have nothing else, Chairman Teal, Commissioner Van Winkle. We just want to thank you for your time this afternoon, for letting us do our presentations. And I know they were a little bit long, but we try to be very thorough at Sterling Ranch. We would ask for your support for this really exciting project. And thank you.
All right, ma'am. Let's return to the board for any questions, any further questions to the applicant.
I have no questions.
All right. I don't think I have any questions. So we've heard from the applicant, we've heard from the public. At this time, let's come back to the board for any further comments and, of course, any action that the board would like to take.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I do appreciate the very thorough presentation and the community input, and then the answers to, I think, every single question that the community brought up, and also the answers that were answered that arose in my mind throughout the process, throughout the application process, essentially between the Planning Commission on January 12th and today, February 10th, since when we are hearing it. I think to sum up my thoughts, I know it's been a very long day, Mr. Chairman, so let's get right to it, sum up my thoughts. I appreciate the extra time and attention that was given to my questions and the hot topics, which, of course, the water requirements for Sterling Ranch and future development, the future firefighting infrastructure, the road plans, the future road plans and master transportation studies. I very much like, first and foremost, the secured open space that is found in this plan. I think that will be beneficial for the people of Douglas County and Sterling Ranch and all surrounding the communities, really, for decades to come, and hope it will always remain open space. I like the cleanup of the old industrial waste and seeing those pictures firsthand of the land that Sterling Ranch will have the opportunity to remedy. Should this pass, very much appreciate that. And the rest of it, do find, is in compliance with the requirements of the Douglas County Zoning Resolution, the Comprehensive Master Plan, found here, and all the approval criteria that we've been through today. Very much appreciate the applicant also accepting those two conditions that were presented. And therefore, Mr. Chair, I move to approve Sterling Ranch Plan Development, 15th Amendment, Planned Development Rezoning, a major amendment, because it does meet all the approval criteria with two conditions as present. This is project file ZR 2025-014.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. In going through the applicant's presentation and then hearing from the public, over and over again, I kept hearing concerns mentioned by the public, but then I kept hearing matters of fact, matters of planning coming from the applicant. And over, I'm seeing actually kind of a culmination of a great deal of work that has gone into this area, working with the commissioners. It was mentioned Zebulon. It was mentioned the utility project that's going in, that is a part of American Rescue Act funding that was provided by the federal government, going into the Leviers area and passing through the conservation area. The concerns on Highway 85, I was having a conversation about the planning that we've been doing there as a county, not necessarily reliant on Sterling Ranch for that planning, but as a project planning of the county with CDOT only the other day. And so over and over again, I'm seeing a culmination of work that's really tying together a great deal of work in my mind over the last 2 years. I'm sympathetic to the residents who expressed this feels hasty. And I can understand that, because this is the final step in 10, 12 steps that have preceded it that we have been a part of as the county, but also working with the applicant as a partner. So I look at our approval criteria and go through this in addition to the comments from the applicant. And actually, I see this as being a compliant measure, both as a rezoning and as a major amendment. And it all fits with the planning that your elected representatives have been doing in the area anyhow. So I second the motion to approve, and I do understand the concerns of the public when we talk about we have concerns now, But a lot of those concerns are addressed in this planning, folks. And those that are not directly, I think, again, about Titan Road and 85, it's work that we're focused on several times every year anyhow. So I speak in favor of the motion. There has been a motion and a second. Further discussion? Not hearing any further discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And the rezone and major amendment are approved. That comes to the end of our land use and public hearing for today. The next land use and public hearing will be held on Tuesday, February 24th, 2026 at 2:30 p.m. We are adjourned.